The morning my sister-in-law called me the family's personal ATM to my face at my own kitchen table while drinking coffee I had bought, I didn't say a word. I just set down my mug, looked at her, and smiled. She thought that meant I was fine with it. She had no idea what I was already thinking. My name is Harriet. I'm 31 years old. I work as a senior compliance analyst for a regional bank in Columbus, Ohio, and I have spent the last 4 years quietly paying for a life that was never supposed to be mine to carry. Let me back up. My brother, his name is Philip, is 36. He's charming in the way that makes you feel chosen when he turns it on you, and invisible when he doesn't. He married his wife Renee 6 years ago at a backyard ceremony in our parents' yard that I helped coordinate and partially funded because Mom asked me to chip in, and I said yes, because I always said yes. That's the thing you need to understand about me before any of this makes sense. I was the responsible one. The one who got the scholarship, stayed out of trouble, built a real career while Philip bounced between jobs and Renee ran her home boutique selling handmade candles on Etsy that I don't think ever broke even. I was proud of what I'd built. And because I was proud, and because my family made me feel like my success was a shared resource, I slowly, so slowly I didn't even notice it happening, started paying for things I had no business paying for. It started small. $100 here, a grocery run there. Philip's car insurance one month when he said he was short. Then it became Renee's car insurance too. Then their electric bill. Then their internet. Then, somehow, I was on the hook for $2,200 a month in transfers, subscriptions, and automatic payments. And I had my own rent, and my own student loans, and my own life that I was funding on top of all of that. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself they were going through a rough patch. I told myself this is what family does. What I didn't let myself say out loud was that it had been 4 years and the rough patch had never ended. And every time I brought up any version of, so what's the plan going forward? Philip would get quiet and wounded, and Mom would call me the next day and remind me that I had more than they did, and family takes care of family. So I kept paying. The coffee mug morning happened on a Tuesday in February. I had driven 40 minutes to their house because Philip asked me to stop by, said he had something to talk about. I assumed it was another financial thing. I was already mentally calculating what I could absorb that month. I walked in, and Renee was at the kitchen table with her candle spreadsheets open on her laptop, which I also paid for. She said without looking up, and I want you to understand, she was not trying to be funny. She said, "Oh good, the ATM's here." Philip laughed from the other room. I stood there for a second. Just a second. Then I sat down, poured myself the coffee she offered, and listened to Philip explain that his truck needed a new transmission and could I friend him $3,000. I said I'd think about it. On the drive home, something shifted in me. I can't explain it exactly. It wasn't anger. Not the hot kind, anyway. It was more like clarity. Like when you've been staring at one of those optical illusion images and suddenly the hidden picture snaps into focus and you can't unsee it. I was an ATM. That's genuinely how they thought of me. Not their sister, not their family member who had sacrificed her own financial cushion and peace of mind for years. A machine. You walk up, you press a button, money comes out. I drove home, sat on my couch, and started going through my bank statements. I had not done this in a while. I had been deliberately not doing this because I think on some level I didn't want to see it written down. In 4 years, I had transferred, gifted, lent, call it what you want, just over $67,000 to my brother and his wife. $67,000. I sat with that number for a long time. Then I opened a new spreadsheet and I started organizing it. Every transaction, every Venmo, every automatic payment I'd set up on their behalf. I included dates, amounts, what it was for. When I was done, it was 11 pages, single-spaced. I didn't send it to anyone, I just saved it. I called the file inventory.xlx and I put it in a folder on my desktop that I labeled home stuff so nobody would ever accidentally look at it. Then I called my friend Daphne, who is an accountant and also the most practical person I know. I told her what I'd built, what I'd spent, what I'd been carrying. She was quiet for a moment and then she said, "Harriet, what exactly are you waiting for?" I told her I didn't know. She said, "You do know. You're waiting for permission. Stop waiting." That was March 3rd. On March 10th, I sat down and made a list. Not a confrontational list. Not a here's what you owe me list. A logistics list. Every account I was connected to, every subscription, every auto pay. Philip's phone was on my plan. Their streaming services, all four of them, were on my cards. Their internet bill auto-paid from my checking. Renee's gym membership, which she hadn't used in 8 months based on the charge never being waived, was on my Visa. I didn't do anything yet. I just made the list and looked at it and thought about what I was willing to let go of and what I was not. On March 14th, my niece Zoe, Philip and Renee's daughter, she's 13, called me out of the blue. She called from Philip's phone, which is on my plan, which I found darkly funny. She wanted to know if I was coming to her spring recital. Her school orchestra. She plays the cello. I said of course I was coming, and then I asked her how she was doing, the way you do. And she went quiet for a second, and then she said, kind of carefully, "Harriet, can I tell you something kind of weird?" I said yes. She said, "I heard Mom and Dad talking last night. Mom said that you're basically bankrolling the family and that you don't even notice anymore." She said it like it was a good thing. I don't think Zoe understood exactly what she was telling me. She said it the way kids do when they're repeating something they know is wrong, but they don't have the full context to explain why. Like she just knew it was off, and she wanted to hand it to me to figure out. I told her that I appreciated her telling me. I meant it. After I hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot of my apartment complex for maybe 20 minutes. What got me wasn't that Renee had said it, I already knew that's how they thought. It was the she doesn't even notice anymore. That was the part that stung in a specific way. Like the disrespect wasn't even active anymore. It was just assumed, built into the structure. Like of course Harriet doesn't notice. Harriet never pushes back. Harriet is reliable like a utility bill. I noticed. I had always noticed. I just hadn't said anything. The recital was on a Saturday at the end of March. I drove up. I sat 3 rows back. I watched Zoe play beautifully and I clapped so hard my palms were red. Afterward, we all went to dinner at an Applebee's nearby because that's where Zoe wanted to go. She got the boneless wings and a Shirley Temple and she was glowing the whole night. After dinner, Philip picked up the check. That surprised me enough that I mentioned it. I said, "Oh, let me split it with you." And he said, waving his hand, "No, don't worry about it." It was a $68 tab for 5 people. I don't think he heard himself. I had paid $67,000 over 4 years, and this man thought he was being generous covering a $68 Applebee's check. The smile I had on my face in that moment was not the warm kind. It was the kind where you are holding something very still inside yourself. On April 1st, and I promise I did not plan the date, it just worked out, I sat down and began. First, I called my phone carrier. Renewed Philip's line. He would get a notification. I didn't warn him. Then I logged into my streaming accounts. Netflix, Hulu, Max, the one Renee used for her crafting tutorials. Changed the passwords on all of them. Renewed the saved payment methods. Logged out all devices. Then I called my bank and removed the auto pay for their internet and electricity. Then I canceled Renee's gym membership, which I was technically the account holder on because I had set it up as a gift 3 years ago and somehow never been removed. I did all of this in about 90 minutes, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, and when I was done, I closed my laptop and went for a walk. I want to be honest about what I felt, because it wasn't pure triumph. It was more complicated. There was relief. Real, physical relief. Like setting down a bag you'd been carrying so long you forgot it wasn't part of your body. But there was also grief, I guess. Grief for the version of the relationship I had wanted. For the family I had kept paying for the privilege of belonging to. I let myself feel all of it on that walk. Then I came home and made dinner. The calls started that evening. Philip first, calm at first, then confused, then irritated. He said there must be a billing error because his phone wasn't working. I told him there was no error. I told him I had removed his line. There was a pause. He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I've been paying for it for 4 years and I've decided to stop." Another pause. Then, "Harriet, what is going on with you?" And here's the thing, that question made me almost laugh. What's going on with you? And here's the thing, that question made me almost laugh. What's going on with me? As if I was the one who had suddenly started acting strange. I said, nothing is going on with me. I just want to talk about the money, Philip. When you're ready for that conversation, I'm here for it. He hung up. Renee called 20 minutes later. Her tone was different, less confused, more cold. She said she knew this was sudden and she wanted to understand what had changed. I told her I had been reviewing my finances and I was making some adjustments. She said the word adjustments like it tasted bad. She said, these are things we depend on, Harriet. I said, I know. She said, you can't just, these are things we depend on. I said, I know, that's actually the problem. She hung up too. My mom called an hour after that. I had been expecting it. Mom has always been the family's unofficial mediator, which in practice means she applies pressure to whoever seems most likely to yield, and that has always been me. She led with concern. She said Philip had called her, very upset, said I had cut off his phone without warning. She said she didn't understand what I was thinking. She said, the family, several times as a kind of incantation. I let her talk. When she was done, I said, Mom, I need to tell you something and I need you to actually hear it. I told her about the spreadsheet. Not the whole thing. I didn't read her the 11 pages, but I told her the number, $67,000. I told her the timeline, 4 years. I told her about the coffee mug morning and what Renee had said. I told her what Zoe had overheard she doesn't even notice anymore. Mom was quiet. I said, I noticed. I have always noticed. I just kept hoping things would change. She said softly, I didn't realize it was that much. I said, I know you didn't. But it is. There was a long pause and then she said, what do you want to happen now? And that question, that one, right there, was the first time anyone in my family had ever asked me what I wanted. It was such a simple question, it almost broke me open, honestly. Not because it was too much, but because it was the first time it had occurred to any of us that my wants were a relevant factor. I said, I want to be their sister. I don't want to be their bank. Mom said she understood. I don't know exactly what she said to Philip and Renee after that. I know she called them because she told me she did. I know whatever was said, Renee did not take it well, because 2 days later she sent me a long text message that I will not reproduce in full here, but the summary is that she felt ambushed and blindsided, and that family doesn't do this to family. I read it twice, typed out a response, deleted it, didn't send anything. What I did instead was forward my spreadsheet, my 11-page inventory, to Philip's email. No message, no explanation, just the file, with a 2-line note that said, I wanted you to have a clear picture. I'm not asking for repayment. I just want us to be honest. He didn't respond for a week. When he did, it was a short email. It said he had looked at the spreadsheet. It said he knew he owed me an apology and he was trying to figure out how to give me one that was real and not just defensive. He said he needed some time. I said that was fine. That was 6 weeks ago. Here's where things are now. Philip and Renee are figuring out their finances without me for the first time in 4 years, which is uncomfortable for them, and, I will be honest, it has been uncomfortable to watch. Their internet got shut off for 2 weeks before Philip sorted out payment. That felt bad, not satisfying, just bad. I do not enjoy watching my brother struggle. I want to be clear about that. But I also know that I was the reason he didn't have to figure this out until now. I was the infrastructure. And taking myself out of that role, as painful as it is in the short term, is the only way any of this gets better. Renee and I are not currently speaking. That's her choice and I'm giving her the space to make it. If she comes around, I'll be here. Zoe still texts me. She came over 2 weekends ago and we made banana bread. And she showed me a TikTok she was working on for a school project, and I helped her with the voiceover. She didn't bring up any of the family stuff, and neither did I. She's a good kid. She figured out before the adults did that something was wrong, and she was brave enough to say so. My mom and I have talked more in the past 2 months than we did in all of last year. Real conversations, not the kind where she's managing me. She told me a few weeks ago that she had been carrying guilt about how much she had let me carry, and that she was sorry. It was a hard thing for her to say. I know it was. I told her it was okay. I meant it mostly. The $3,000 for Philip's truck. I never sent it. His truck is currently sitting in a shop in Ghana, and he worked out a payment plan with the mechanic, which I found out through my mom. He handled it. He handled something. That is new, and I am genuinely glad. I had a therapy appointment last week. I've been seeing someone since all of this started, and my therapist asked me how I felt about the phrase ATM with legs. She asked if it still made me angry. I thought about it for a second. I said, no, it made me clear. She asked what I meant. I said, and I want to say this right because it matters. I said that for a long time I had been operating on a story I told myself, which was that I was helping because I chose to, because I wanted to, because that's what love looks like in a family. And that story let me feel good about myself while I was doing something that was actually making everything worse. It let me avoid the harder conversation about what I actually needed and what was fair and where the line was. Renee calling me an ATM was the story breaking open. She said the quiet part loud. She handed me the truth I had been managing around for 4 years, wrapped it in contempt, and dropped it on the kitchen table. And I picked it up. I still have the spreadsheet. I look at it sometimes, not to feel bitter. I worked really hard at letting go of that, but as a reminder. A reminder that love without limits isn't love, it's just depletion. And that the people who truly love you don't drain you down to nothing and call it a given. I went to Zoe's next orchestra practice last week and sat with my mom in the bleachers of her middle school gymnasium. Zoe waved at us when she came out with her cello. She looked so normal and good and entirely unaware of how much I needed that moment. My mom handed me a granola bar from her purse the way she used to when I was little, without saying anything about it. I ate the whole thing. Some things are simple still, and I'm holding on to those. If you're watching this and you're in the middle of something like what I described, where the transfers have become automatic and the thanks stopped coming, and somewhere along the way you became a function rather than a person, I just want you to know that the spreadsheet exists. The clarity is available, and the people who love you will still love you when you stop being endlessly available to them. The ones who don't, well, you already know what they were there for. Thank you for watching. If this hit close to home, let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe. We're building something real here, and I'm genuinely glad you're part of it. I've thought a lot about why it took me 4 years. Not because I'm stupid, I want to say that plainly. Because I think a lot of people in situations like mine quietly wonder if they are. I'm not stupid. I have a real career. I manage compliance frameworks for a living. I catch other people's errors for a paycheck, and yet I spent 4 years transferring money out of my own account, month after month, while telling myself a story that kept me comfortable enough not to change anything. That's not stupidity. That's something else. It's the particular kind of blindness you develop when you've decided that being needed is the same as being loved. And once I understood that about myself, a lot of the last 4 years started to make a different kind of sense. Here's what I actually believe now. After all of it, the way you treat people is a decision that compounds. Every time Philip let me cover something he could have handled, he made a small decision. Every time Renee accepted without thanking, she made one too. And every time I transferred the money without saying what I actually felt, I made one. None of those decisions were dramatic in the moment. They were tiny, but they stacked. And over 4 years, $67,000 worth of tiny decisions built a structure that none of us could see clearly anymore, because we were all living inside it. Zoe could see it. She was 13 and she could see it because she was outside the structure looking in. Kids are like that. They haven't learned yet to rationalize what's right in front of them. She just knew something was off and she told me. That took a kind of quiet courage that I don't think she even recognized in herself. I think about that sometimes. How the clearest truth in a complicated situation came from the person with the least to gain from saying it. What I had to build back in myself wasn't anger. Anger came easy and left fast. What I had to rebuild was the willingness to be honest, with myself first. Then with the people I loved. The spreadsheet wasn't a weapon. It was a mirror. I built it because I needed to see the truth in a format I couldn't explain away. Numbers don't soften. They just sit there. And the hard part, the part I still sit with, is that the most ethical thing I could have done for Philip was stop a long time ago. Not because I owed him less, but because I was doing him genuine harm. He is 36 years old, and he had never negotiated a payment plan with a mechanic because he had never needed to. That's not kindness I gave him. That's a ceiling I built over him and called it a gift. Real care for someone includes letting them be capable. It includes the discomfort of watching them figure things out. It includes saying, clearly and without apology, this is what I can do and this is where I stop. That's not coldness. That's respect. And I think real love, not the obligated, resentful, exhausted kind, but the actual kind, requires that kind of honesty as a foundation. I'm still working on being someone who says those things earlier. I probably always will be. But I know this much, I am not an ATM. I never was. And the moment I stopped acting like one, everything that was real stayed, and everything that wasn't real revealed itself. That's enough for me to move forward on.